There's already speculation across the globe about the 2024 United States presidential race.
Our Newsmax Rome correspondent Alex Salvi joining us live with details on this. Alex?
Yeah, Russian President Vladimir Putin saying that he believes it's wise for President Biden to seek a second term. Speaking at an economic forum in Moscow, Putin said if a leader decides not to run, they essentially become a lame duck, and the opposition will then obstruct their agenda and take their chances in the next election. And some are suggesting that this was an inference that Putin would prefer to deal with President Biden as opposed to maybe another candidate. The Russian leader adding that he has a good relationship with President Biden and hinted at a possible second summit between those two leaders. Now, others have seen Putin's comments as being purely self-interested. He essentially unilaterally changed the Russian constitution in order to allow himself to seek another term as president of Russia, meaning Putin is the one who's also up for re-election in 2024. And although he hasn't officially announced a campaign, he's likely trying to avoid that same lame duck period that he warned could happen to President Biden if he were to announce that he would not be seeking re-election.
Obviously, Vladimir Putin would have his country's best interest in mind when making a decision on who runs our country. So it's interesting as him wanting Biden to run, you can put the pieces together as you will. You also mentioned that Putin has a good working relationship with President Biden, a working relationship. What is the status or the ties between the two nations at this time?
Well, there are tensions. Moscow saying today that it's expelling several U.S. embassy staffers as retaliation to the U.S. taking similar action against Russian diplomats who have failed to renew their visas. But the State Department is hoping to ease some of those tensions, announcing today that Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet with his Russian counterpart on the sidelines of an event in Stockholm, Sweden on Thursday. Putin today calling for a deal with the U.S. in those talks to prohibit the inclusion of any more Eastern European countries into NATO. Now, that meeting will come directly after Blinken meets with his Ukrainian counterpart, who is pushing for NATO membership, which would require the collective group to then come to Ukraine's defense in the event of any conflict with Russia. So we should see a lot of developments over the next coming days.
All right, we'll be watching it. Alex Salvi, thank you very much for that live report. Let's bring back in our panelists now for reaction. Bob McEwen, Brian Lee, Bob Barr. Bob McEwen, start us off. Your reaction to Putin's comments saying that he would prefer if it's Joe Biden who runs in 2024.
Well, I think it's very transparent that pardon me, the best thing that could ever happen to Putin would be the current president. We know what happened under Obama Biden, and that is that when he walked into Ukraine, we did absolutely nothing. And when Donald Trump came in, he put sanctions on him. He made America energy independent. As beginning of this year, the United States of America was the largest producer of oil. Now, since Mr. Biden has put America on the ropes, the price of oil has doubled. That has just empowered the Russian economy, and Mr. Putin to exorbitant heights is one of the best things that could have ever happened to him. Now we see him putting 100,000 troops on the border of Ukraine. I was in Ukraine with the leadership just a few weeks ago. They understand what the threat is, and they know the weakness that is in the White House at the current time. So without question, it's transparent that Putin's best desire would be for the president of the United States to be Joe Biden.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.